All right, Disney, we're going to have to talk about Thor Love and Thunder. Welcome to another edition of the audio-only version of BestowCast. And this week we're going to talk about Love and Thunder. I don't know if I have to put spoiler warnings anymore. This is kind of way past when it was out in theaters. It did come out on Blu-ray not too terribly long ago, and I think it was on streaming a little bit beforehand. But yeah. If you buy into the rage of the internets do not like Love and Thunder, and usually I opposed the internet's hive mind. But I'm going to give my shot at a so-called review. Now, I've said before that usually my reviews, it's hard for me to review anything. It's because it's like, well, it's a thing and I liked it. That's fine. It's fine. I mean, you're also you're also listening to a person who actually kind of liked The Last Jedi. So, take this with a grain of salt, I guess, or whatever. But here's my spin on Love and Thunder. I don't know. Where do I even start with this? Where do I start? Where the hell do I start with this? At some point with Thor, they kind of went off on the crazy train. They kind of went on the silly. We have to go on the silly factor. Thor is no longer a serious character. He has to be a yucks per minute kind of character. And they started with Ragnarok, and it wasn't really like Ragnarok wasn't like a yucks per minute kind of film. I mean, it was funny, it was silly. But they were having an adventure, and it was a fun adventure, and not everybody was like bouncing off the wall, cuckoo crazy. I guess what the Grandmaster was a little bit weird, and Thor and Loki were kind of weird, but I think like the Hulk was kind of grounded. Valkyrie was kind of grounded, so like there was grounded characters. Korg was kind of weird. It is Korg, right? I got to make sure I have that. Yeah. It's Korg. All right. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't naming the wrong thing. Now, Korg is a little bit like the weird. He's kind of the. I don't want to say comic relief, because I guess they're all kind of, like I said, Thor's not super serious. I mean, he's still serious, but he's not super serious. But yeah, I mean, it seemed like Ragnarok was kind of like it seemed to balance the yucks with the serious tone, and I think it was okay. Like, I remember thinking when that came out, it was like, this is kind of a weird direction where they're taking it. But then, Ant-Man is kind of a little bit, doesn't take himself too seriously. Like a lot of the Marvel franchises kind of don't really take themselves super serious. But then we get to Love and Thunder, and I don't know where to put my finger on it. It starts off with Gore and his daughter, and it starts off with like a super serious like kind of tone right from the beginning, where it's like these guys, this guy and his daughters are the last of their people, and they're I believe they're dying of thirst. They have no water, and they're praying to their God, and their God never comes, and the daughter dies. And of course, when it comes to Gore's time, and he's actually like in front of his God, he takes, he enacts vengeance. But this is like where the first set of cracks kind of like appear, where like the God is kind of like silly and goofy, Gore's like kind of talking to him, and he's like, we're just having fun here, screw humanity, screw your prayers, and I wasn't kind of off put from that in the beginning. I can't say that was off putting. It just kind of set the tone of like, well, the God is out of touch. It's an out of touch. He's just not in touch with the speed with his followers, And it's like, okay. But then we move forward and we kind of get the whole thing with Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy. And the Guardians act, like the Guardians do. They're kind of weird they have their own way, they have their own manner, they're their own, like the Guardians of the Galaxy, I felt acted like the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think they were pretty spot on with how they were with their franchise. And then Thor, who's just kind of really out of touch. He's been kind of out of touch since what? Since the Endgame. He was kind of wonky in Endgame as well. And my view on that was like, Thor's kind of a character who's been around and he's just not in tune. Like, again, where I said about Gore and him talking to his deity, where like Thor is just not in touch with everything else that's around him. He's not aware of everything that's around him. And that makes him, that spins it a little bit goofy. It makes him a little bit more wonky because he doesn't exactly fit in. He's just basically having a good time. So I didn't really find Thor all that all that weird in this iteration, considering how he was in Ragnarok and considering how he was in Endgame. I just kind of picked up that the character was kind of just out of touch with what's going on around him. I mean, he's a god. He does not see to the same level as everybody else. So that's my kind of take on it. And I have another take on the whole story, the whole movie as a whole. But I'm going to sit on that until the end of the episode. But yeah, you kind of get this nice scene with Thor and the Guardians of the Galaxy. Everybody thought we were going to get the Asgardians of the Galaxy. We're going to get Thor and adventures with the Guardians. It lasts like a heartbeat, and then the Guardians are like, "Screw you, we're out of here," which is a very comedic moment. Is actually something that I thought worked well. It was like, they're there for their own means, and then they kind of have this god that's kind of, he can do anything. They have to sit there and toil to get their job done, and you got this guy that just can walk in and basically snap his fingers and have the job done in moments. And he's kind of cramping their style, and he's definitely cramping Star-Lord's style. He doesn't really want him around. So when it's time for Thor to depart, they were more than happy, and I felt like that was enough. I know a lot of people were upset with the Guardians not having a longer stay in the film, but I feel like it was just enough. It's not a Guardians movie. It's not a Asgardians movie. It's not a Guardians plus Thor kind of movie. I get it where you kind of teased that there was going to be more, and it was like 5 minutes worth of stuff. But I feel like the Guardians kind of I think they stayed long enough. I think if they would have stayed any longer, it would have been too much. It would have taken away from the whole story. And then we get into like Jane Foster's whole ordeal with the cancer, which is ripped from the comics. That is, it is from the comics. However, it is not displayed the same way, or at least if it is, it went over my head. How like her cancer and how like the powers of Thor, because again, spoilers, but you made it this far. She gets the destroyed hammer, and she actually is able to call upon the powers of Thor to delay the effects of cancer and actually make herself feel good. She's actually able to step up in a role as a superhero. But with that, we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to move on. I'm moving on. I'm going to tell the rest of Thor Love and Thunder. And welcome back. So we were going on about like the wonkiness of Thor Love and Thunder, and basically here's where the story has a tonal issue. When Jane Foster is dealing with her cancer, that should have some levity, and that should be taken seriously. Like when she's Thor or anything, she should be like the most grounded character. When Gore's on his mission and he's supposed to be Gore the God Butcher, he's more like Gore the God Botherer. He kills like a behemoth, and that's about it. He doesn't really slaughter very many gods aside from his own deity and everything. He's not really much of a threat. He's not portrayed as much of a threat in the movie as he is in the comics. But when Gore is on screen, he should be taken super seriously. He shouldn't be sitting there playing peekaboo with the Asgardian kids. Same when we get to like Valkyrie. Like Valkyrie was a kind of a stoic character when it came to Ragnarok. She shouldn't be a goofball. And here comes not only is this, not only do you have these characters that should be grounded, but then we involve Zeus, and we involve all these other gods, and everybody is just like fucking Looney Tunes. It's all like and it's very jarring. It's like, when freaking Zeus is sitting there like, I get it. Okay, so if we extrapolate the whole story with Thor, and Thor's out of touch with everything else, so that's why he's a little bit goofy and a little bit weird. Maybe we can extrapolate the same thing from the gods, and that they're just not in touch with their deities, or sorry, not their deities, but with their followers and stuff. That they're a little bit wonky and weird, and they're old, and they've lived a long life, so that they've just kind of gotten weird in their old age or whatever. But I don't know. It's just like, it's just the Looney Tunes hour for like the rest of the movie, and it's like there's nothing to kind of balance it out. I mean, we even get to like the ending, and all of a sudden it's like, Thor has the power to hand off his power to anybody he wants to, which I guess would make sense. If the hammer of Thor can give Jane Foster the power of Thor, well, I guess why not? I can suspend suspension of disbelief. Am I saying that right? I can suspend disbelief a little bit, saying, okay, well, Thor can probably give his powers to the children for a little bit. And then we just get the Looney Tunes again with like the children, and it's just like, and again, it's like you can do this with the children, but like when the end of the world was happening, and you were so depressed because you as Thor couldn't do anything to help the people, but you could give your powers to the people. Like how did we get past like the Avengers and all that stuff without this thing? Fine, ignore, whatever. Maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe he doesn't want to sit there and give people all of his powers or whatever. A little sidetrack, or I guess not really much of a sidetrack. I kind of glossed over. It's like the whole thing with they had to go to Zeus because they're kind of they're warning Zeus of Gore the God Botherer is coming to get them, and they need his help, and they go and they steal his lightning bolt, and I don't understand where Thor's pretty much with Mjolnir. He pretty much, well, not even Mjolnir. He doesn't have Mjolnir anymore. He has oh shoot, I'm gonna lose a corner of my totem ship here because I'm losing some geek cred. The axe, Stormbreaker. I think that's what it is. Stormbreaker. He's able to summon lightning and do pretty much anything that Zeus can pretty much do. And then, I don't understand. I guess they stole it so that Valkyrie, so that like the three of them had thunder powers. The three of them can be Thundercats hoes. I want to actually take that back because that's kind of insensitive. I meant to make a reference, and I think I somehow turned it dirtier than I intended. They steal the lightning bolt, but it makes it plays no part whatsoever. It has no part in the movie whatsoever. It makes no sense other than to introduce Zeus to do his curly shuffle thingamabobber. How I can ignore the goofballiness of this movie, or what I can take away from this, is that the story pretty much starts with Korg telling the story. and he's narrating the story throughout the movie. So and he's getting like a lot of details wrong. Like he's calling Jane Foster Jane Fonda and such, and Thor's correcting him. And the fact that he starts the story, he ends the story, and there's bits in the middle that he's narrating. That my hand wave to this is that the reason why it's goofbally is that it's Korg's story. He's telling the story, and because he's kind of Looney Tunes himself, he doesn't get the facts right or anything else. That it's a little bit, a little bit above and beyond, a superhero. It's a little bit more slapsticky. Aside from that, I mean, I really wish they would have, a little bit more levity with Gore, a little bit more levity with Jane Foster would have been great. I mean, they kind of screwed up the whole Jane Foster thing anyway, and I'm not 100% sure if they could have done this in a movie. I mean, I guess. I mean, so all right, here in the comic book, she uses the hammer that basically negates, while she's Thor, it negates the fact that the cancer's progressing. However, it's also like negating all the things that was healing her cancer. So it's undoing the chemotherapy. So when she isn't Thor, when she and her power goes, like every time she releases the hammer, when she let goes of the hammer, she goes back to being Jane Fonda. So she has to have constant contact with the hammer, or so I understood. Don't quote me. I didn't read those books directly. This is Wikipedia knowledge. But I think it's like, as long as she had the hammer, she was Thor. If she didn't have the hammer, she went back to Jane Foster. And when she went to Jane Foster, the cancer never went away, but it became more aggressive because all the medications that was taking care of it was pretty much destroyed by the power of Thor. So the movie expresses it where, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, please comment below or comment wherever you can, and let me know if I'm misunderstanding it. But it sounds like she has the hammer, and the hammer just accelerates the cancer. So it's not really doing the whole thing that the film said that it's doing. Like, she's seeking out the hammer to kind of like stop the cancer or delay the cancer or whatever. But by the end of the movie, all it did was advance the cancer and made it worse. And so, she ends up like self-sacrificing at the end. I don't even know if she did she even really self-sacrifice? In my mind, I'd rather have her like traded herself for Gore's daughter, like her life so that Gore's daughter could live. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place with this, but Gore makes it to infinity, which is nice to actually see infinity on the big screen. And we saw that in 3D, and how infinity is displayed in 3D was kind of neat. And I guess, he's going to destroy infinity, which would in fact destroy all the gods, but it would just destroy everything. And he learns that he's wrong. He learns that he's in the wrong. And it's just, I don't, it's just kind of a poo-poo ending in comparison to all. He kind of gets to his goal, and I don't know, he just has a change of heart, or just realizes that he's in the wrong. Or I guess, I would think that the sword corrupts him, and maybe like, him getting in front of infinity. And, much like Jane losing the hammer, maybe he loses contact with the sword, or the sword gets destroyed, and he has he realizes what he's doing isn't good either. But yeah, that's Love and Thunder. That's my zigzag pattern all around and up and down and to the left and to the right. And is it the worst Thor movie? So, I guess according to the internets, Thor: The Dark World was the worst Thor movie. Even though I never really hated Thor: The Dark World, the villain is kind of underwhelming in that movie, but I don't really hate that movie. I don't think that movie in all of Marvel media, I don't know if that would be the bottom of the barrel. Is this worse than Dark World? Maybe. Um, yeah, I mean, there's stuff that I really, I mean, there's stuff that I like about it. I mean, people absolutely hate those fucking goats, and I love them. I thought they were fine. I thought their moments were used. My one friend says, you should have just used the goat joke in the beginning, and then you see them for the rest, and then you don't get the, during random parts of the film, because that was annoying. Didn't bother me one bit. I actually laughed every damn time that happened. So, I could have done without the sentient hammers. All of a sudden I mean, I got a giggle out of it, or it got a giggle out of me, I should say, where the hammers are kind of sentient, and Thor's with Stormbringer, and he's pining for Mjolnir, and there's a kind of all of a sudden the hammer's like sentient. I probably could have done without that. I mean, that's really weird. But again, if you look at it through the scope of Korg telling the story, all right. I mean, I guess if that was the idea, if that was sorry if I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but Taika Watiti. Sorry. If that was his intention, was that it was through Korg's scope, and that he's not a reliable narrator, I guess it should be more explicit. But I don't know if it needed to be more explicit. I mean, Korg is telling the story. I mean, it ends with his narration. It kind of begins with his narration. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would do without the sentient hammer. The whole thing with I for Gore to be a god butcher, I'd like to see Gore actually be a god butcher and not a god botherer. Him just kind of, moping around in the background and stuff. Doesn't really do much. And then, and then he just kidnaps the kids, but then he's not really a threat to them. Like, he never really came across as a threat to the children. I don't know. Yeah. I guess, like, in the fourth Thors, I would put this at the bottom of the barrel. I would probably put, here, if we were doing the charts, if we were ranking them, I would probably do actually Ragnarok as number 1. I would probably do the original Thor, the first Thor, as number 2. Dark World number 3, and Love and Thunder number 4. It's just really all over the place. And then a final thing here is that Love doesn't really exist in the comics. There's a character called Firebrand that there's a lot of rumors that this character might be tied to the Firebrand comic, Firebrand character in the comics, in recent comics. But it's hard to say. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of Marvel seems to be pulling from current continuity versus anything that's older, or if they do something that's older, it's kind of mixed in. It's kind of a dusting over. Or if, like, modern comics, sometimes the modern comics is like a little bit of retelling of something that happened in the past. Is Love Firebrand? I don't know. She's also referred to as the Daughter of Infinity. I don't know. I mean, it's this unique area where Marvel, the MCU, has kind of taken a lot of things and stayed really strict to how they are portrayed in the books, and kind of keep strict to the kind of their continuity, and they don't really stray outside the lines too terribly much. I mean, even weird things like Falcon and Winter Soldier. I thought that there's a lot of things in there that look like they're going in their own direction. And then you go and you get into the lore, and they're pulling a lot of, they're referencing a lot of things out of the comics. When you kind of get to Love, and Love's kind of, if you want to look at it from the angle that Love is a unique character to the MCU, that's kind of ballsy on Marvel / Disney's part to, have the original character, because let me take a little side trick here, is that at one point we talked to Mike Mignola, who was the creator of Hellboy, and he talked about the Hellboy movies, And he's like, the thing is like, Hellboy 1 comes out, and he says it's already 15% different. I'm not sure if he actually said that phrase. I'm kind of using that phrase from my other old podcast. Is there's a 14% difference from the movie to the comic book, and then they make a sequel. Well, once the sequel comes out, it's following the movie universe, which takes it even further from the comic books. And he says by the time you get to a third movie, it is so far removed from the comic books that it's kind of its own entity at this point. So I kind of did that sidetrack of talking about Hellboy to compare that to Love, where we've got a character that doesn't really exist in the comic books, and that we're kind of, to use that character, we're starting to actually pull away from how we're pulling away from actually how the comic books go, or how it's starting to steer away from being a comic book entity and being a film, movie, entertainment kind of thing. So I hope that all made sense. Hopefully I didn't meander too terribly much. I hope that you are enjoying the podcast. I would like to hear, if you have any comments. Please post them wherever you can post them. If you can post them on our Facebook page, that's fine. If you're listening to this on YouTube's, go ahead and strike up a conversation on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on any of your podcast areas, unfortunately, I don't think you can comment on it. Or if you can, I probably can't see it. But feel free to reach out to us on Twitter or anything else. I would love to hear some points, and maybe if there's anything that's very poignant, maybe I'll bring that up in a future episode. But I thank you again for listening to another episode of BestowCast. I will see you soon. Or maybe you'll hear me soon. Later.